Good morning, everyone. Welcome you all to the virtual school. So today we will be basically getting over to the last topic of the chapter 2. Okay, but before starting, let me just say, if you are new to my channel and if you like the content, please like my content and share it and subscribe my channel, because it is really motivating for me to put up more good stuff on this channel. Okay, so now coming straight away to the topic. Our today's topic would be static and dynamic binding and the advantages of object-oriented programming. Okay, it would be a very small lecture because these are very basic definitions that you must know, and there are certain advantages linked to it. Please make a note of each and every point. Okay, so there are mainly two types of binding, that is static and dynamic binding. Okay, what is static binding? A static binding is a binding that is done while you compile a program. Okay, but let me just give you a simple example. Suppose you have written a program and you have overloaded certain function, okay, or you have overloaded a particular operator, okay, to perform certain actions. Okay, so when the compiler of a programming language runs, it basically makes a note of all the function calls that you have done while writing that program. While going through that program, it just note down where you have made a function call. Okay, so this is a static binding. Okay, why it is static? Because before running the program, all the bindings have been made, that is, all the function calls have been linked. Okay, so this approach basically makes the execution of a program a bit faster. Okay, moreover, the complexity is quite low. Okay, but when we come over to the dynamic binding, the binding which is done during the runtime, okay, that is, the compiler doesn't know in advance as to which function would be called. Okay, and these bindings are done while the program is running. Okay, now how can you emulate that? Okay, I have already discussed the concept of inheritance. Okay, so suppose you inherit a particular class. Basically you extend a base class or a particular class. Okay, and you call a function of that class. Okay, now suppose the function by the same name is also written in your present class. Okay, then during the compilation, the compiler won't know as to which class function it is actually calling. Okay, it's only at the execution time. Okay, it will extend the base class and it will call its function. Okay, so you see, this is dynamic in nature. Okay, that is, at the runtime only the compiler the execution or the flow of program is deciding as to which function would be called. Okay, so this is a basic difference between dynamic binding and static binding. What are the key points that I want you all to note? That static binding is done during the compilation of the program, and dynamic binding is done when during the runtime of the program. Okay, static binding is a faster approach, that is, the execution of program is faster. Okay, in the dynamic binding, it is comparatively a bit slower. Okay, so just make a point of these, and this is the basic difference of static and dynamic binding. Later on we will be seeing this in programs. Okay, and it will be more clear to you. Okay, now coming over to the advantages of object oriented programming. Okay, the object oriented programming has following advantages. Okay, just note down each and every point. Okay, the first one is simplicity, second is modifiability, third is extensibility and maintainability. Okay, then reusability and security. Okay, now I will discuss each and every one of it in a bit detail. Okay, now what is the simplicity? Okay, as you can see, the object-oriented programming is based on creating objects, and the objects are has a very close relation to some real-life objects or real-world objects that you see around yourself. Okay, so the relatability actually makes the program very simple. Okay, that is, the simplicity of the program has increased because you can actually relate to a particular object as a particular real life object. Okay, so this is how the simplicity of the advantage simplicity of the object oriented programming is utilized. So now coming over to the second point, that is modifiability. Okay, the why an object oriented written program is much more modifiable. The first question comes is this. Okay, it is because in the object oriented programming we basically use classes or the objects. Okay, now when you define a class, you provide certain data members to it and you provide certain functions to it. Okay, now if you modify these data members in a certain way, or if you modify the functioning of these functions in a certain way, it won't affect the entire program. If you see from a larger perspective, of course the changes are made in the classes. Okay, but the entire structure of the program remains untouched. Okay, because you are accessing that class as a whole and you are not separately accessing its functions or its data members. Okay, so that's why the modifiability of a object oriented programming language is much more. Okay, now extensibility and maintainability. If, as I've already told you, you can have as many objects as you want. You can you can form as many you can define as many classes as you want. You can separate the entire code separately in a particular class or a particular function. You can divide them into certain categories. Okay, so that's why object oriented programming is much more extensible. That is, you can extend the approach of the entire program as much as you can. Okay, and it is very maintainable. Why it is maintainable? Because it is divided into certain chunks. That is, these classes or these objects are a certain chunk of your program. Okay, you can easily modify them. Okay, without affecting the entire program. So it is very extensible and it is very maintainable. Okay, now coming over to the reusability. Okay, reusability is not just a concept specific to the object oriented programming. It is a concept that is much more wider and has its approach in the entire programming language, any programming language that you can take. Okay, your code must be reusable. Okay, that is, if suppose you have written a particular piece of code and it does perform a particular operation. Okay, now now that code must be reused at multiple occasions, and you must not write that code again and again at some other point because you need it. Okay, there must be some way to actually access that method or a particular operation that you can perform. Okay, that is, the code must be reusable. Okay, so as I have already discussed the concept of inheritance. Okay, when you inherit a particular class, you basically inherit its functions also, its data members also. You can use them. Okay, so this is how the reusability advantage has been applied. Okay, basically by using the inheritance, you actually imply the reusability of the code. Okay, security. As I have already told, when you define a class, you provide data hiding. Okay, that is, you define some private members or some public members. Okay, so in a way you are actually implying security. That is, the certain part of the program would remain secure from the outer classes and it won't be affected by the other systems. Okay, so this is how the security of the by using data hiding, by creating the instances. Okay, you basically provide the security. So in a way, these are the 5 basic advantages of the object oriented programming. Just make a note of each and every point and it will be clear to you. Okay, so this is what concludes our chapter for now. Okay, we will see the exercises in the next lecture.
If you liked our content, kindly like, share and subscribe us so that we get motivated and we can provide you more informative videos on the same subject.